Today we talk about new efforts on the Space Coast to keep you and your family safe. My guest is Brevard County Sheriff Wayne Ivey. He and State Attorney Phil Archer have started a program to empower parents to become the chief law enforcement officers in their children's lives. Ivey also has started a new firearms training course meant to teach better decision-making and self-defense skills to people seeking concealed weapons permits. Also coming up in the program, a special report from USA Today on a travel-related ripoff that may soon appear in your mailbox, if it hasn't already. Stick around for that. Now, watch my interview with Sheriff Wayne Ivey. Wayne, you have this interesting new program that you're going to be undertaking with the state attorney to help parents. Tell me about it.
It's called Time to Be a Parent Again. And the basis of the class is that today's parents have so many challenges that parents 30, 40 years ago didn't have to face. We have social media, we have all the different aspects of Twitter and cell phones and everything else. But the big basis for it is we want to empower our parents to be able to control their kids. Matt, when we look at, you know, in so many lives, unfortunately, the chief law enforcement officer in that child's life becomes the sheriff or the chief of police or the deputy or patrolman that's working at. We want the parents to be the chief law enforcement officer. We want to empower them, give them the tools they need so that they can keep their kids in check, hold them accountable, and be able to have that kind of thumbs on, if you will, on their kid's life so that they go onto that successful path.
So who are you encouraging to participate in this? Families, just the parents? Or?
Well, it's open to anybody. Ideally, you know, well, I shouldn't say ideally. We want the parents definitely to be in attendance. You know, there's moms, dads, grandparents, foster parents, all of them collectively to come to it. Welcome to bring your kids if they want to come. In fact, we know there's a lot of single parents out there, so we're going to have some daycare that's taking place to help out our single parents. But ideally, what we want, this class is to the parents, and that's a little bit unusual because usually the class is geared toward the kids.
Scare the kids straight.
Exactly.
Whatever.
This class is designed to give the parents the tools they need, and it really, to sum it up, the very first slide puts it into perspective and what we believe is happening in today's society. The very first slide in the presentation says it's hard to tough love your kid, it's harder to visit them in prison, it's unimaginable to see them in the cemetery. And that's the three choices that we're going to talk about, and how to steer away from the last two and how to steer your kid towards success with tough love. Our state attorney, Phil Archer, is going to be a part of that presentation. He's going to talk about what the laws are as far as disciplining your kid. What can you do to hold your own kid accountable? So many times I'll have a parent come up to me and say, you know, little Johnny won't give me the password to his computer, or he won't come home when he's supposed to, or, you know, all of these different variables. And the parents, there's a lot of parents out there that are trying to do it the right way. Unfortunately, there's some parents out there that are trying but are doing it the wrong way. And so we want to speak to both of those groups. We want to give them the tools they need to be able to control their kids' lives and actions and make sure that they're keeping their kid on that straight and narrow path.
What are some of these tools? What are some of the things that you know, we parents ought to be thinking about in terms of staying a step ahead of our kids, or protecting them from people that we know might be either trouble for them or people they might get into trouble with?
Well, and that's the first step. You just hit it on the head there. Is we need to stay on top of them. We need to make sure that they're not hanging with people they should not be hanging with. Historically, we had to worry about that at school. Today, you have to worry about it at school, on the internet, on the cell phone, everywhere else. So I always tell people, be just as guarded over who your kids are talking to on Facebook as you are over who they're hanging out with at school. But to answer the question about what are some of those tools, that's where Phil Archer's role is going to be so dynamite for this. Phil is going to tell you exactly what the legalities are. So many parents today are scared that if they discipline their child, they might themselves be in trouble for something. And so we want to make sure that we're telling them how to do it and giving them the tools to do it the right way. We're going to start out from a philosophical approach. We're going to show the parents some of the current crime trends that are going on today, some of the failures that we've seen. We're going to use some examples of some different celebrities and everything else to show them where some of the mistakes have been made. Obviously, the state attorney's office is going to talk about the legal side of it. And at the end, the last segment of this, I think is going to be one of the most dynamic parts of it. We're actually going to use the members of our chain gang as a panel of experts and let the parents ask them where their life started to fail at. Where did they find their problems starting at? And let them, the chain gang, I've already talked to them, they are eager to do it. They don't want anybody to follow in their footsteps. They don't want anybody to end up in jail like they did. So they're actually going to help us put this presentation on, and it's a great opportunity for parents to hear it straight out of their mouths as to what's happened. So I think the whole premise of the class fits right around the title. It is time to be a parent again. It is time for parents to be the chief law enforcement officer in their child's life. We are there to help. We are there to assist. We are there to be embedded and embraced in every part of it. But the chief law enforcement officer in my life was my mom and dad. I didn't even know who the sheriff was. I was worried about mom and dad being after me. That was what I was worried about. And so we want parents to take that role, and we want to give them the tools so that they feel comfortable and empowered to do it.
Figuring out how to crack into your kid's phone world is got to be one of the toughest things.
Yeah.
Because I was talking with Pastor Jarvis Wash. You know, he's kind of this crime-fighting pastor up in
he is an incredible man.
Cocoa and Rockledge, just really cares about the kids. And I was talking to him about, well, how, you know, where is this trash talking going on that leads to rivalries and people calling each other out and then to shootings, and where are people, you know, starting to tell on each other or not? And he said, it's all happening on phones. Everybody has a phone these days. And you try to teach your kids, like when it comes to bullying, well, just put the phone away. Just turn it off and go away, but they can't because it's their life now.
It is their lifeline. It is the way that they are connected to everybody they know, including us. You know, I've had parents tell me that their kid will be in their bedroom and they'll text them and say, what time's dinner? You know, the texting and cell phones and social media has broken down a lot of the fibers of family, and it's, you know, it's not a bad thing that we have all these incredible resources. But how we're applying them, I think, is what is starting to take effect. And I'll give you a perfect example. I had a parent not long ago ask me, said that her son won't give the password to his computer, so she can't monitor his Facebook, she can't monitor his emails and everything else. And truly, she was perplexed over what she should do. Now, you know, I'm a little bit off the edge out there, so my response to her was probably different than what our state attorney is going to be. My response was, did you pay for the computer? She said yes. I said, is it a laptop? She said yes. I said, take it out, put it behind the tire of your car, run over it and crush it with your car, and then tell him I don't need your password anymore. And her response was, well, wouldn't I get in trouble for that? And it was really the catalyst behind us coming up with this and wanting to do it. And the whole goal of this program is for parents to walk out the door understanding that they are with their kid all day long, or they are with their kid all evening long. We only see their kid when they're already crossed the line and they're in trouble. They have the ability to be that chief law enforcement officer in their child's life, and we want to partner with them to make sure they know how to do it.
Boy, you think about the length of time somebody actually spends as a teenager, and it's so fleeting, and yet the things that they decide to do
can be the rest of their lives.
Can be the rest of their lives.
Absolutely.
It's incredible. Well, you mentioned the chain gang. Let's talk about that. What is it?
The chain gang is actually a crime prevention tool for us. It is it's a partnership, if you will, with the inmates. That sounds so odd to say that we've partnered with the inmates, but I'll stop at nothing to do crime prevention. And it's a message. It is a tool. When I grew up in North Florida, I would wake up during the summer and I'd see the chain gang out working in the ditch, and I'd say, boy, I don't want any part of that. And it was a messaging, if you will, of you're not coming here. It's also a mechanism of you're not sitting in jail all day long and you know, enjoying air conditioning and watching TV and everything. So when we put it into play here, our goal was to send a crime prevention message. Our goal was for mom and dad to be driving down the road with their child in the car, see the chain gang, and say that's what happens if you disobey. That's what happens if you break the law. And so we wanted to put it into play, but I wanted to use it as a strong crime prevention tool. And in order to do that, we actually went out, talked to the inmates, and I asked them point blank, how many of you want your child to follow in your footsteps here? Of course, none of them. How many of you would want your grandchild here? Of course, none of them. I said, well, then I want you to help me deliver a crime prevention message. Before I left, I had 35 people that volunteered to be part of the chain gang. 35 inmates that met the classification that wanted to be a volunteer. The last time I checked, we had a waiting list of inmates that want to be on the chain gang. And I think the best telling sign of that was the very first day we rolled them out. We rolled them out on Lake Washington Road, and I went down and watched them as they came out and started to work for the very first time. And they were standing there, and one of them caught my eye to the left, and I said, I knew him from some of his other assignments that he'd done, and I said, aren't you supposed to get out tonight at midnight? And he said, yes, sir. And I said, well, what are you doing out here on the chain gang, and you get out tonight at midnight? And his statement was, I didn't want to leave without being a part of this. And I went over and talked to him kind of privately, and I said, what do you mean by that? He said, I want to do something to keep a kid from coming in here, and hopefully a kid will drive by today and see this, and it'll change his life. That's a testimony from somebody that's been through that, somebody that's been in there, and the message is very clear. Don't go to jail. You could be out here, and that's why we use the traditional stripes, everything. We have the big signs there.
Now, are they shackled together by the ankle?
No,
like
we don't shackle them
style?
together.
Okay.
They are individual. The chains run between each of their ankles. The big fear and concern with them all being shackled together is if something happened to one of them, then it's a chain reaction, for lack of better terms, to everybody. So we wanted to do everything. We make sure we do everything we can to protect them with specialized boots, with even sunscreen and glasses and everything to protect them. But they work every day. In fact, we work 6 days a week. They go out, and it's such a benefit on both sides. It's a win-win. They're out. They're engaged in a positive interaction. They go into an area that's littered or that's trashed. They see it as it is, and then they see it when they leave after they've made an impact and made a difference on it. And on top of that, they know that they're doing something that is helping a kid. And then to the taxpayers, it's we average or we estimate that it's about $175,000 a year that they save the county from having to go out and pick up all the trash and everything else. We used them in the parks after the 4th of July to clean up all the debris and everything. So it's a win-win on both sides, and it's a powerful crime prevention message.
You are also starting something new involving firearm training. A little bit more than your typical concealed carry class, I understand. Fill me in.
It's called Self-Defense Through Tactical Shooting and Decision Making. And I get that facial expression a lot, but the reality of it is this class is as much about when not to shoot as it is when to shoot. It is a 8-hour block. If you go through this class, you will qualify to get your concealed carry. But what's unique about this class is, you know, when you go to concealed carry, a lot of times, believe it or not, people go out and they shoot one round through their gun, and then they've gone through the rest of the class. We're not doing that. We're putting you through an 8-hour course. The first part of it is self-defense through mental preparedness, how to use your mind from ever being in a violent crime situation, how to think your way from ever walking into a scenario that could put you at risk. The second part, again, we're partnering with our state attorney, Phil Archer. Phil is going to talk about the legalities of stand your ground, castle doctrine, and self-defense. Again, it's as much about when not to shoot as when to shoot. The third part of it, the third component, is we are going to take you out on the range. We've designed it so that it's good for any age, any adult, and any physical ability. It's amazing how many people from all ages are getting concealed carries at this point. So we want to make sure that they know how to properly handle the weapon. We want them to know how to retain it. Weapon retention is big for us. The last thing we want is
how to not have it be stolen.
Exactly.
Okay.
That's in the retention area. The last thing we want is for somebody to pull it out and the bad person take it from them and turn it on them. How to not have it stolen. How to make sure it's locked up properly in your house with gun locks or safes. Everything else. All of that's part of the course. And then you get to the tactical side of it. We're actually going to teach you to tactically shoot. We're going to teach you to reload. We're going to teach you to move for cover. It is going to be a very engaging time out on the range. And then the last part is, and it'll be a rotating cycle of this, but the last part in the 8-hour day is you're going to shoot our simulator, which puts you in shoot, don't shoot scenarios. And it's a very computer-generated model where you actually talk back to the computer, and you're giving commands and telling people to leave you alone and everything else. And then at some point, you'll reach where you have to make a decision. Should I shoot? Should I not shoot? When you shoot, it'll show you if your shots actually hit the target you were shooting at. It'll show you whether they were lethal or not. And then we finish playing the scenario, and you actually get to see whether you should have shot or if it was something you totally didn't expect was happening. So again, it's as much about when not to shoot as when to shoot, but I want our citizens that are carrying guns to be prepared to protect themselves, their families, and to understand how to retain that weapon so that nothing bad happens from it.
I see. You and I were both panelists the other night at a forum for the Liberty Caucus of Central East Florida. It was a Second Amendment rights forum. Marco Mara, the defense attorney for George Zimmerman, was there. And a question came up that stumped me, and I just wanted to follow up with you on it. And it was about should local law enforcement be asked to enforce some kind of federal gun laws? And I just want to follow up. Is there something underway right now that we need to know about? That
No, there's a concern that if they started passing gun laws that are unconstitutional, passing laws that go against the Second Amendment, and that's where that question, and we actually during the campaign experienced that question in a lot of, that's why I kind of knew where they were going with the question. But the concern becomes, as a constitutional officer, would you ever enforce a law that violates the Constitution? And the answer to that is unequivocally no. So that's where that concern comes from. You see it in other areas as well, where sometimes the feds come in and try and impart their powers upon you. And years ago when we had the fires here, they actually came in and said, we're going to run this and we're going to do it this way, and if you don't want it, then we're taking all of our stuff and leaving. And they said, well, take all your stuff and leave. We're going to protect our citizens the way we think is the right way to do it. So there comes a time, and hopefully that time will never come, but there does come a time where you have to be prepared to stand up and protect that Constitution, and that's what the question was, and that's an easy one for me to answer. I've always been a constitutionalist and always will be.
But there's a question of like the tension there. Like, how do you decide? I mean, you wouldn't just up and say, oh, I'm not going to enforce that law, right? I mean, you'd be having conversations with the feds first and say, you know, question that. You know, and how do I really have to enforce this? You probably.
Well, I can give you an example of that. There's a sheriff out there. He actually really kind of coined the phrase of the constitutional sheriff, Sheriff Mack, who was at the time a sheriff in Arizona. And the Brady Bill came into effect, and the Brady Bill, when they were looking at it, they found it to be unconstitutional. And Sheriff Mack actually refused to obey the findings of the Brady Bill, took it all the way to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court ruled in he and some other sheriffs' favor. So that's where, that's the stopgap in that is, you know, we would never enforce something that violates the Constitution. Ideally, we'll never come to that, but you know, we just saw with some of the events of sequestration and stuff, where they were closing down monuments and things that people had been able to walk past for days, and so that's, I think that kind of fueled a little bit of that topic as well that night.
We'll hear more from Sheriff Ivey in just a moment. Now, here's that special report we promised on a travel-related ripoff.
It's eye-catching. Your name and address that appears handwritten on a stamped envelope. A letter from U.S. Airlines claiming you've been awarded tickets. Come on, who are these people and what do they really want? It begins with a call to claim the award.
First name is Jeremy, J-E-R.
An operator answers from an Arizona call center, not an airline.
I'm in Denver.
He says if I sit through a 90-minute sales pitch by a Denver travel agency, I'll get my voucher for the tickets.
Tuesday of next week would be awesome.
If we attend the seminar, we'll get our tickets. Let's see if we do.
I will just need to check each of you in with an ID.
Okay.
And then I will need to see your credit card. Thanks for coming.
And so I wear a hidden camera.
You got the airline tickets?
Got them.
Cool.
I get the certificate for the airfare.
Oh, you do? Oh, the certificate. All right.
That's what we do.
Okay.
We just bribe people to come in with vacations to let you hear what we do.
This woman claims she's with Global Connections.
We are a member of the BBB, guys, and we do have an A+ with them.
Oh, okay.
Not only do we have an A+, we're an accredited business with the BBB, so we're pretty proud of that.
Global Connections. Where are you guys based out of?
This is Kansas City.
Oh, okay.
Overland Park.
After this meeting, the main event.
42 years ago.
They love showing off that A+ rating.
And our A+ rating with the BBB, we're very proud of that.
And then the price to pay to join their travel
club. If you want to come
club.
back, it's $18,500 once for you and your family the rest of your life. One-time fee.
$18,500?
Yep.
For that price, outrageously cheap vacation rentals all over the world.
Istanbul, $159. Venice, $159.
That's $159 per week?
For the week.
All right.
Let's stop for a second to tell you what we found out about this company. They don't have an A+ rating. They are not Global Connections. Their real name is Global Travel Network out of Utah. They had so many complaints, many about that U.S. Airlines letter, The Better Business Bureau there revoked its accreditation. They didn't say that during the presentation.
It's all very misleading and concerning to us. It's basically a form of deceptive sales practices.
Because I didn't get what I was promised.
Shelby Lawson complained after attending the same presentation.
There was a cost of $50 per ticket just to get the voucher, and then when you actually purchase the ticket, you would have to pay airline fees as well as taxes.
And U.S. Airlines, it's actually a real business in Wyoming, but definitely not an airline. Here we are in the middle of Cheyenne, Wyoming. I found a business named U.S. Airlines registered here. To this office, on the front it has a sign that says Xerox, so we're gonna go check it out. My name is Jeremy Hohol. I'm with 9 News out of Denver. How you doing? All we found is a woman who is just as baffled as we are.
We have one gentleman in our office who does these different businesses they come through the state, but they're not they don't physically have an office here, no.
After that trip to Cheyenne, a whole other company emailed us saying they own the U.S. Airlines name. Travel Club Marketing says it sends out millions of these letters for travel agencies. U.S. Airlines is a company on paper only. Hi. When we asked Global Travel Network about the letters, the local boss claimed to be clueless. We received this letter, and it says U.S. Airlines up at the top. Do you know U.S. Airlines? Do you know that it doesn't exist?
U.S. Airlines doesn't exist?
U.S. Airlines is not a real airline.
Okay, I need to... We have no comment, unless you want me to call security.
We were ushered to the lobby, but didn't want to leave without our tickets. This doesn't look like an airline ticket, though.
Well, you have to fill this out and send it in. You have to follow all the steps.
Will U.S. Airlines take this?
You have to go through this marketing company.
Okay.
They schedule the flights through all these airlines.
But what about U.S. Airlines? Will U.S. Airlines?
It's on here, right here, sir.
That's U.S. Airways. This says U.S. Airlines.
Well, it's the same company.
Do you know what? Oh, that's not the same company. No, U.S. Airways exists. The real airline, U.S. Airways, calls the letters fraudulent.
They promised me 50, man.
Back at Global Travel, people are still coming in expecting a gift. What were you told?
That I get a $50 gift certificate and flight, you just got to pay the taxes.
But Global Travel didn't like us being there, so they called the cops. You guys here for us by chance? After waiting and waiting and waiting,
I got my clipboard too.
The only response from Global Travel Network we got... Well, at least they're being honest with how they feel. We filled out the ticket voucher. It is very likely the companies involved in this whole thing knew we would do that. In the fine print, it required money for taxes and fees. So after sending in $100 in money orders and doing even more paperwork, we got our electronic tickets. Travel Club Marketing says it has thousands of satisfied customers, far more than the people who've complained, they say. But U.S. Postal inspectors call this whole tactic misleading. They urge if you get one of these letters and you feel that you've been defrauded by this whole thing, you can file a complaint with their office.
Wouldn't it be nice if something that looked too good to be true really was true? Sadly, the world seldom works that way, especially not in Florida. Brevard County Sheriff Wayne Ivey would be among the first to tell you that. Here's more of my interview with the sheriff. You have something else that I know you've participated with the state attorney, and that's like a financial crimes unit and investigations. Tell me a little bit about that. I know it's new. Right. But what will it be looking at?
You know, when we look at financial crimes, economic crimes in Brevard County, identity theft, for example, we rank 113th in the nation. The city of Chicago ranks 115th, two behind us. And so we wanted to put something in place that would give our victims a place to go. We wanted to actually do two things. One, through our crime prevention efforts, keep people from becoming victims. The second thing is if they do become a victim, be able to give them a resource and an outlet to fix the problem. So we took and partnered with Palm Bay, Titusville, Melbourne, and the state attorney's office. Actually, we partnered with a couple others as well, the IRS, and we put together an economic crimes task force. And that task force has one mission, and that mission is to investigate fraud of any capacity. Primarily, we focus on scams against our seniors, identity theft, and credit card fraud. Their overall mission, the dynamic is, it's an estimate that 1 in every 700 fraudsters goes to jail. We want to turn that around. We want that. Our state attorney has always been very hard pressed on identity theft, credit card fraud. We want our team to investigate the major organizations. That team's not designed to just go after somebody that steals your wallet and goes and fills their car up, with your credit card. They're going after the major organizations that are impacting hundreds of victims and doing thousands and thousands of dollars worth of damage.
Find that group that keeps sending out the send me the money by, Western Union and tell us about the customer service thing where you wind up losing $500 or something.
Yeah, all the different scams. There's so many of them out there right now. There's a couple, the grandmother scam that, one of our seniors will get a phone call saying that it'll be a grandson or a granddaughter pretending they've been arrested, and they'll say, don't tell mom and dad because, they told me not to hang with these people, and here I am in trouble. Can you send $2,500 by, wire to get me out? And the grandparents so want to help their grandkids that they're falling for it. And, I always tell everybody, if you get a phone call or if you get a text message or you get an email that asks you for something, disconnect from it. Hang up, delete it, or turn off your phone from it. If somebody's calling you asking for anything, it's going to cost you money and it's going to be a fraud.
No one would call and ask you for serious money if they weren't someone close to you anyway.
I was going to say my daughter calls me all the time and asks for money.
I get that, right? I just did that today with my daughter coming home from college, but some long lost relative,
exactly,
or some friend you forgot you had stuck in England or something.
It's not just about the money. If they're asking for account information, social security number, if they're asking you to go turn your computer on, there's a scam out there right now where they claim to be one of the antivirus groups. They'll call you and say, can you turn your computer on? And then they want you to help them get into it. And they're remotely planting a virus in your computer as all this is going on. So I always tell everybody, if they call you, hang up the phone. If you're scared that your bank account has been compromised, look on the back of your bank card. There'll be an 800 number that you can call that's a trusted source. There's so many different scams out there. Don't ever talk to anyone that calls you or sends you an email.
Wayne Ivey, good luck with the new programs.
Thank you.
Hope to check them out myself.
All right, thank you, buddy.
Well, that's it for today's show. To comment on anything you see on this program or read in Florida Today, send us an email at letters@floridatoday.com. I'm Matt Reed. We'll see you right here next week on WEFS and FloridaToday.com.